Hello, and welcome back to the channel, The PROWIRC Method, where we discuss concepts from the book Happiness and Well-Being Through Balance and Progress, the PROWIRC Method. So today we're going to discuss the actual last chapter in that book, which is discussing the topic of staying power. Now, why is this a particularly good week to discuss staying power? Well, a lot of things in the news cycles. Definitely knocking people off course, and a lot of things in the sort of geopolitical and international geopolitical situations and things that are going on, natural disasters and things that are knocking people off task, off their mission. And the reason we have the topic staying power in the last part of the book is one of the most important things to actually continuing with your progress for your well-being and continuing on to finish and complete your objectives and that kind of thing is the ability to keep restarting. When we talk about staying power, we certainly don't just mean that we're expecting that once you start on a program and you get your mission statement together, and then from that you create some good goals. And from there, in the PROWIRC system, we look at the 7 areas of your life that we want to keep in balance and progress, being power, relationships, organization, wealth, image, relaxation, and creativity. And we like to keep those 7 areas in a state of progress so that you have balance in your life to take on the goals and to go after your mission statement. But we don't suggest, when we talk about staying power as a very important topic, to continue on with your progress and to continue on with and actually have accomplishments that you're happy with, that you get to the end part on and that you get on to the next ones to work on. We don't expect for a second that you're going to be able to consistently and always continue on mission. Continue on exactly with your schedule. Continue on with exactly all the things that you're hoping that you do every week to keep these 7 areas in progress. Now, actually, one of the big things about staying power is just simply that idea that when you do find you've been knocked off track by whatever has come your way that has knocked you off the track and you're off schedule, that you can actually sit down and say, hey, I'm off schedule. And in the PROWIRC system, we have a couple of anchors to get back on schedule. But for anyone that has anything that they're working on consistently with a schedule, just the idea to say, you know what, today I'm restarting. Tonight I'm gonna consider what I need to do to continue on with my plans, and then continue on with those plans. So in the PROWIRC method, the first thing is we're looking to do is one of our main objectives, of course, is to find that balance by considering the 7 areas, get those things in a state of progress, define your mission statement so that you know what does fit in with your life, what type of goals and plans should be fitting in with the life you actually want to have, the lifestyle that you want to have, so you're not picking things that send you on wild goose chases and all that type of thing. So then you get with your weekly meeting, you look at items that you need or activities that you need to get these areas in progress, and you put them into your schedule so that you can begin to move ahead on those things. But we have a couple of anchors in the PROWIRC method, and the one is that weekly meeting, the weekly meeting that you're having with yourself to just go over those things that we just discussed there, so that you can have a look at your sense of balance, you can have a look at your sense of progress, and you can have a look at your schedule and say, okay, am I doing everything I can do to have that feeling of well-being that I get by keeping these things in motion? And then the other thing that we have going on to really help anchor you in the PROWIRC method is we have a half an hour warm-up session that we really like to try to do in your schedule every morning if you can do it, or sometime early in your day when you can get a half an hour to yourself. But honestly, if you do it first, it really helps with a lot of things. And a portion of that time period, 15 minutes of that time period, is designed to do a creative exercise where you have pre-chosen a creative exercise to do for creativity's sake, and for the 15 minutes you just run your mind wide open and you take down the information as you do that creativity session. So, you might have decided to, we have brainstorming plans in the PROWIRC method to come up with creative projects that you can do, or to come up with good topics for creativity sessions. But let's say you thought, I'd like to write a story, or I'd like to write a book, or I'd like to write a book of short stories. Or maybe I don't even want to write a book, but maybe for my creativity session, I'm going to choose creative writing. And so the idea is that for 15 minutes early in your morning, when you're just getting up and getting rolling, you're sitting down with pre-chosen topics, and you are just writing down as fast as you can everything to do with that topic, ideas to do with that topic. If you have stories, try to continue it on or write key points about it. But the idea is to have an objective when you sit down creatively that you can just run your mind wide open. Now, in our system, you don't get, for 15 minutes a day, you don't try to do the best work you can ever do in your life or only write down good ideas, because actually that does not help your power of creativity. So what we want you to do is to let the creativity flow right out. So you write out all your ideas on that topic, and you are just, writing that out for 15 minutes. Now, after the fact, and at other times you have scheduled, you can go back and look at those ideas, and you can pick the good ones, and you can brainstorm those in other sessions that you have for yourself, or you can continue on with that the next day in your 15-minute session. You can continue, just to write freshly, continuing on the topic, or you could decide, hey, on tomorrow's, I'm going to brainstorm one of these. And so what it is that idea for 15 minutes a day you're using and really pulling from your power of creativity. Now, what we like that to do is it just gets you in the habit of using your creative powers every day. And over time, and over a very short period of time, that starts to come in as a power on everything you do during the day. We just like you to start with that in the morning, and the other 15 minutes is some type of physical warm-up session. Now, a lot of people have, if you have a workout plan or where you're actually working out in the morning, then you can use that as your, instead of the 15 minutes, do your workout plan. That'll be great. But no, I think a large percentage of people don't have that going on. So for those people, basically kind of a warm-up, which, I like stretching kind of exercises. I like things like Tai Chi. Some people like yoga. There's other trainers, for instance, on YouTube that you can just watch them, take you through some stretching exercises, or exercises good for your level of fitness or for your age or for whatever. And the idea is, if that morning is started every day with a stretching sort of exercise thing to get you limbered up, warmed up, and then you're running your creativity every morning before you start everything in the day, then you're actually going to find, I believe you're going to find, that in all your tasks that you do and everything you do in the week, you're going to, in a very short period of time, feel a little more physical and mental power for dealing with those. That's one of the reset buttons that we like to look at when we're trying to get back on schedule. And I think the second, of course, is the actual meeting itself, where we go over those 7 areas. Now, why did I think it'd be such a great idea also today? And I know I'm talking to this a ways in, but we really just went through that crazy ice storm. And, if you don't have power for a week, and you don't have running water for a week, you're literally filling the toilets with pails, and you don't have lights and, that kind of thing. Can you get off topic? Can you get off mission? Can you get off your schedule? I certainly did a lot. Without those services, I wasn't doing my morning sort of rituals for my creative projects. I wasn't doing my morning warm-ups. In fact, I was, just looking for, getting out in my car and trying to find a phone signal, and then ended up watching, too many news cycles and just get completely bumped off track. Now, keep in mind with this idea of the staying power, what we talk about when we're getting back on track is not only to have that weekly meeting, but by having that 15-minute sessions a day of the creativity session and the physical warm-up session, that each day in your little planner, you're checking off, I did that. And one of the great things for this staying power that we talk about in the end of the book is that just to get the most days in a row that you actually check that box off. So one of the, again, obviously in this system, the state of progress is the thing we're really trying to keep in motion so that we have that general feeling of well-being. And let me tell you, if you suddenly have checked off a box of 30 days in a row, you know what? I got it for 30 days in a row. I did a 15-minute creativity project, and I did a 15-minute physical warm-up. You're going to be feeling differences in your body, in your strength, in your power, in your mental and physical power. And you're going to be feeling some progress there. You're going to be getting some, well-being out of that. So anyway, with my week with the ice storm, and then deciding to, I drive out somewhere where I can get a phone signal because I couldn't get the internet or Wi-Fi going, and the phone signals were missing in half the areas. And then you get out there and go, oh, good, here it is, and here's some media, and I'll watch the news to find out about the weather, but then I end up watching 100 other sort of negative news things, and I'm all about, I like the idea of staying up on the news to some degree and that kind of thing, but not as a hobby, and not as I'm going to start my day every day with an hour of bad news. That I was definitely off my game there. So what ended up happening when it came around to last weekend, I had done, put together some topics for the next show here for our PROWIRC channel, the PROWIRC method, and then I didn't get to tape that because no power and couldn't get the lights and everything to work, couldn't recharge the camera, and then before I knew it, you're into that whole week of, then you're like, oh, okay, well then I didn't do any remixes for the shorts, or I didn't do this, and the whole sort of it's not a huge commitment of time for me to continue putting together the shows about the book. It's generally it's about 7 hours between coming up with the weekly ideas for topics and then also taping them, because I try to tape them live. I do tape them live without editing. So in other words, I will restart the video if I lose my place or make a mistake or just guffaw or I start coughing or whatever can happen, and I'll just keep doing that restart until it works. So that wasn't happening this week. So I used my restart method, and I got back out my had my PROWIRC meeting, said, okay, here's my areas. What is out of progress for the week? What is out of schedule? What do I need to do to get back on schedule? And and that's how we approach the topic of staying power. So once again, the topic of staying power is not that you ever get bumped off track, because you will. The topic of staying power is always being able to have a few ideas and a few definite plans for how you're going to restart, continue, and move forward. Anyway, if you happen to have one of those weeks as well, remember, I also said our mantra lots of times this week, the one we use here on the channel, the PROWIRC method. I said it to my time many times this week when I got overwhelmed by the ice and the darkness and the cold and all of the things that went with that. I said, I am a unique being, separate from my situation. I possess the godlike power of creativity, and I choose the power of creativity and thankfulness over fear, apprehension, or anxiety every minute of every day. And I only had to sort of say that over to myself a few times. Each time I was getting a little overwhelmed by all the ice and the fallen trees and the downed power lines and, all those things. You thought, wow, how are we going to get this rolling again? And before you know it, here we are 8 days later, and now the power is back on, and we've gotten back onto our regiment here to do the PROWIRC method channel. And we're hoping you're getting back onto your regiment, whatever it may have been. And I know there's certainly, an ice storm is one thing. There's a lot of things that were a lot worse than that in the world, in the last week. And some of them are going to be not easy to rebound from. But I highly recommend that every person at some point is going to say, okay, I have to get the balance going in my life again somehow, and I have to get the progress going in my life again somehow in order to be able to have any chance of recovery and move forward. And that's the information that we're giving from the book Happiness and Well-Being Through Balance and Progress, the PROWIRC Method. That's our PROWIRC Method. Thanks for joining today, and we'll hope to talk to you soon.